Okay, it looks like we're live. Let me just tweet this out that we're up and running here. And we'll get going. Let me mute that so I don't get any feedback. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do here is just talk about the idea first, and then I'll get the code up so we can talk over the code. And there's more to just the code here. So let's look at the README file, and I'll talk about what the idea here is. So let me get the tweet out that I am live, and we'll get going here. And then I'll start talking about the idea. So let me just get this code, get this tweeted out that I'm up and running. And there's more to just the code. Joining everybody. So let's look at the Hope you had a good week, and I'll talk about what the idea here is. Share this on Twitter. Let me get the tweet out that I am live, and let's get going here. Okay, so what the idea here is, I've been doing some studies for DC Auto, which is a data center automation specialization exam. And I have to really, before we get started, thank my colleague Palmer Sample. He's on Twitter. He's a CCIE. He's part of my training boot camp team at Cisco. He really welcomed me to Cisco, and he's helped me immeasurably. He set up a modeling lab for me because in the DevNet sandbox, the Nexus and iOS XE, they don't have internet connectivity, so you can't really do things with pip installing packages or whatever. So I'm on this Nexus 9KV, and I've set up an external connection so that I can reach the internet. And there is some prerequisites to get going. So if we look at the README file, the first thing we have to do is enable the guest shell. And then I have some commands here to adjust the file size up to 2 gigs and the memory up to 2.688, and then reboot it so that it picks up those new settings for the shell. From there, we have to give it a resolve.conf file so that the shell can have DNS. And then we're going to install Git, because this is Git powered. And then configure your Git as you normally would with a username and email. And then we pip install my little new application, and that's what this code is, and we're going to be adjusting this code. So what I found out, and let's just call up a Google and show you what I mean when I'm talking about this. If you Google NXOS guest shell CLID, you'll get into the programming guide for the Nexus 9000. And if we just do a quick find for CLID, it's not in this document. Let's go back and look for CLID. CLI module for OpenNXOS. And what you can do is here, CLID. This will give you back, like they show you here, CLID, and then show version. It will come back with structured JavaScript object notation. And that's the key to all of my automation, is that structured data. Now, how have I been doing this? I've been doing this off the box with PyATS, parsing that command and returning the JSON, and then templating it and making the documentation. Or with REST API, with Python requests library, or software development kits to do the same thing. From my workstation to the device, bring back the JSON, template it, and make documentation. Well, what I thought was, could I move right onto the box? Right on the box. And it's basically the same code, and I'll come back to this, but what you can see is that I'm registering command output as CLID, and you're going to say, what is this code? It's Python 2.7. So I've had to write this for Python 2.7, and I'm kind of limited by Python 2.7. I can't do some of the things I would like to do, but out of the box, in the guest shell, which is CentOS 7, it comes with Python 2.7 and this CLID function. So when the user runs the code, I've given them a few different things to pass in. The command they want to transform or document, the file type that they want created or templated from the JSON. And then what I've done is added a repository to provide a Git repo and a username for the Git repo and the token to write to that repo. So I'll come back to the code. We'll look at the code throughout the stream here, but let's just go into guest shell. And actually what we can do is do a guest shell details. No, show guest shell details. Show guest shell detail. And you get this information back, and I can sort of hide this, that shows it's activated, and I've given it 2 gigs of disk and 2.5 or more gigs of memory, and it's using 1% of system CPU. Okay, so then what we can do is go into guest shell, and I have a Python environment. So if I just type Python, it will bring me to the 2.7 CLI. And what we could do here at the CLI, just to show you here, is say from CLI import star, and do CLID show version, and we should get back the JavaScript object notation of show version. And there it is. So that's the foundation, that's the genesis of this. Well, now can we just take that, template it, and give those business ready documents? And you're going to see where I'm trying to get to is a self-documenting network. And I haven't quite worked it out. Maybe you can help me with some ideas or see where I'm going wrong, but I'm pretty close. I'm 2/3 of the way there. So let's exit the shell. And what I have is, if we do pip install nxpy-docs, which is what I've called it, -u to upgrade it, it will go ahead and install my tool. So then here I can say nxpy-docs -help, and you can see the command text, i.e. show IP interface brief or show version or whatever, the file type, and they could do no file type, which will just print the JSON to the screen, a JSON file, a YAML file, an HTML file, a CSV file, a Markdown file, a mind map file, or all files. And then optionally, they could provide a repo, a username, or a token. Now, if they don't provide those things, it's going to just dump the file locally in the shell, which isn't of great value. What we want is to get it off the box into a Git repository. Now, are my environment variables still set up? Let me just try to run this real quick and see. That's right, so show version, and let's just do no file type. Okay, good, it's not. So then Git repository. Oh, I have to update my code. That should be optional. Okay, well that's what I'm doing, is iterating and adjusting as we go. So then what I want to do is go down here into repo. It probably says required false. It should let me. That required false should make me able to skip over that repository. Okay, so that's the first snag. But anyway, we'll just provide the repository for now. But required false, it should be optional here. Well, let's give it a default of none. And then we can just key on if it does not equal none. And username none as the default, and token of none as the default. And then let me just make sure here where I say if repo does not equal none, go ahead and do some things. If self repo does not equal none. Okay, that's probably the better way to handle it. So let's take a look at the code. So basically they run the command, and if the self command equals all, then loop over this list of commands with templates. Right now I just have show version. And right now we're just going to skip that, right? So the else, if self command is in the templates and show version is, then, and if file type is picked, then write the file type, right? So I'm getting command output equals CLID and the command they've passed in. The parse JSON is the JSON load of that command output. And then if they pick a file type, right, if the repository does not equal none, go to clone the repository locally, pick the file type, send it to the repository, and then do a cleanup. And if repo does equal none, then just make the file type. Now, what I'm going to do is just quickly change something here for my, if it's not in the templates, let's still print that output to the screen. Right, so instead of saying it's not yet templated, let's adjust this, because they may, right, if they pick it but not a file type, maybe they just want to see the JSON of the command. So let's do that, and then we're going to print the output of the command, and we'll test that out. Okay, so then what am I doing here? Pick a file type, does the different file types. And then if they've picked the file type, go ahead and run that little function. So if it's a JSON file, just write the JSON to a file. If it's a YAML file, do a YAML dump of the file. And I replaced this Python Unicode just to clean up the YAML. If it's an HTML file, a Markdown file, a CSV file, a mind map file, run it through the Jinja template and then save the templated results. In all cases, I dump the JSON to the screen so the user can see the JSON. Now, in terms of the code for the Git stuff, first of all, I'm using os.system to git clone into a folder called nxpydocs and the repo they've provided. Then I change into that directory. Then I do my file creation, and then I come back and git add star, so track those files, add a commit message. And then I found this furl, which I think is formatted URL, which lets me insert my username and password that the user provides, or token, and then reassemble the URL and git push to that new URL, which has the username at password. And then I like to clean up because I can't clone this into an already existing folder. So let's just, since it's been sent off the box into GitHub, let's flush it out and clean it out. So let's go ahead and poetry patch this, increment my patch number here up to 4.7, flush my build, poetry build, poetry publish, and I'm using my token. And on tokens, I'm going to have to display my GitHub token on the screen during this stream. So I will be cycling my keys. I'll be deleting that token at the end of this, so you can't, use my token if you happen to make note of it. So, but for now, there may come some time where you have to see the token. Okay, so now let's go back onto the box, and we're going to re-update, and we want to make sure that we pull down 147. Okay, so I've pulled down the latest version, and now we're going to run nxpydocs, and the command is going to be show version. And let's just do no file type. I want to test this, none, none, none. And it should just print a nice formatted JSON on the screen of the show version command. And that didn't work. I've broken this somehow with my new logic. Of course I have. Let's go back in here. So they said none if... So if self-command and self-command templates, parse JSON, if file type, so they didn't pick a file type, it should have jumped here and printed that parse JSON onto the screen. But nothing happened. So what have I have none? So, let me just check here, right? If file type does not equal none, if self file type does not equal none, else print the screen. Okay. Yeah, that's all it is. So let's patch it, build it, publish it. And I'm just trying to work through all of my use cases here. And let's go back in here and update the code. And give me a little shout out. Let me know where you're watching from. Say hi. I'd love to. I'm watching the chat in another window here. Okay, so let's try that again with no file type. So PyDocs, show version, no file type, no Git repo, no username, no token, and this should. There we go. Okay. Hey, Yairo, thanks for joining. I appreciate your time, especially on a Friday night. Hey. Thanks for joining. And I'm really excited about this. This is really going to, like, I'm just getting started here. So that is the dump of JSON to the screen. Now let's fill in some of those other information. And what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to jump to file type all. And I'm going to create the JSON, the YAML, the HTML, the CSV, the Markdown, and the mind map. Send them into GitHub, and then we'll take a look from there. Right? So we're going to run the code again, and we're going to say show version. And we're going to say all file types. Now my Git repository, and I've set one up that all it has right now, you can see here, it just has a README file. So I'm going to hit the clone button to get the repository and paste that in here. And my username is Automate Your Network. And my token is this. And again, it shouldn't show on the screen. Now, check this out. So it's going to, right, I'm already into cloning the repo, and it dumps it to the screen for each of the file types. And then if I do an ls, there's no folder because of my cleanup step. But you can see here that it has written to my Automate Your Network Git repository. Now let's confirm that by refreshing the GitHub. Well, there they are. There are the files. So, hey, Weekend Make, thanks for joining. Thanks so much. I hope it's edutational, entertaining, and educational. Okay, so now let's go into VS Code where we would normally work, right? So I can see now I have files, and then let's take a look at what I've done with just that little bit of code. So I have the JSON payload, and this is what the CLID is giving us back. Well, here is the YAML file. And the YAML file has it all as a nice dictionary for YAML. Pretty cool, right? Well, take a look at the CSV file. Now I have it as a spreadsheet with all of those fields. Now it's just one line because it's show version, but just wait till I get into stuff that has multiple rows. We're going to have an actual CSV file. And you can see the kernel uptime here. And some other information, right? All the stuff you'd want to know about this device. Now, the HTML page is yes, your Nexus needs internet access, Yairo, because it's going to be reaching out. Hey, Steven. So you need it for a couple things. You need it so that you can pip install my code into Guest Shell. And you also need it to install Git, and you also need it to have internet connectivity to reach out to, awesome, Mike. Yeah, so Weekend Make, this is, I believe that network documentation is the safest and easiest place to start your automation journey. One, your management is going to be, they might balk. They might not have the faith in automation to make configuration management changes. But if you can say, look, all I'm doing is running show commands. I can't break anything. I'm not changing anything. But wouldn't you love to have automatic documentation of your network state? It's valuable, right? And it's safe. And you get to learn the tools and learn code and do all this automation stuff with high value, but the lowest risk. So this is ready to go. Like I could print that to a PDF and take that off to a meeting. and or print it. I could send it to my printer. Now again, it's just show version, so it's just the one row of data. But there is the show version command in a HTML page. Now my last one is, well, two more. We have it in Markdown, and this actually will render on the GitHub. If I hop over to the GitHub and look at this Markdown file, it will render it here in Markdown in GitHub. And before you freak out about putting this on GitHub, I am using GitHub for this, yes. But you can spin up GitLab internally inside of your company. Azure DevOps has internal private repositories. So yes, I'm using GitHub. This could be a private GitHub repo that only your team has access to if you don't have access to an internal Git system. The point is to get it off the box and get it into Git, and I'll show you something else when we run this again. Stephen, you'll catch up. I have no doubt you'll catch up to me. And I'm glad you're enjoying Python. I'm glad you're having fun. What I like about Python is that it seems like you can write pseudocode, save it as a .py file, and it works and just does the magic, right? So that's awesome that you're on your journey. Now let's take a look at the mind map. So now we have show version, and it's a little long because of the text here, but still, there is the mind map with the kickstart information, the memory information, the NXOS information. Beautiful mind map of show version. Now, let's run it again, and let's use the power of Git. So I'm just going to do the exact same. Now, the other thing is, I've made these environment variables. So what we can do is say export repo equals, and I'm just going to grab that repository. So that way we can save ourselves the typing. I don't need to type this in every time for my demo here. So export repo, export username equals automate your network, and then export token equals, and again, I will be recycling my token for all you security-minded folks. I agree it's not great to share my token, but I will regenerate the token. So now I can do nxpydocs, command show version, file type all. I don't need to type in any of those other information. It's going to take it from my environment variables. Now, why I'm running this again, I want to show you something. In theory, my uptime should have changed. And this is the power of Git. This is why I'm sending it to Git and not just SFTPing the files off of the box to a file share somewhere. Let me refresh this. And now let's look at the commit history. Right? So if I go to that commit, we'll look at what's changed. Right? It's gone from 11 minutes to 16 minutes. Now, what if that was a route? What if a route disappeared? What if a neighbor disappeared? What if an error counter went up on show interfaces? You get the idea. Right here visually, and what do we say with networks? What has changed? What changed? So first thing you ask yourself when a P1 comes your way, the network was running healthy and fine. I've been sitting at home playing WoW all day, and all of a sudden my pager starts going off because the network is down, or the segment of the network is down, or there's some problem with the network. Well, what changed? Something obviously has changed. Well, it's right there in front of you. Right? What if this kernel uptime, instead of saying 11, if it went down instead of up? What if it was 3? Well, then I know the box has been rebooted. And why did the box get rebooted? Right? Get operations. So what is the next step here? My next step is to make this fully automated. And I wish I had this worked out. I wish I could tell you that I had success with this. So let me do something else. I want to show you and blow your mind here. So that's all set up. Our users can jump into guest shell and just run NXOS, right? Run that code at the shell. Or check this out. Check this out. What I can do is I can say, oh no, that's not what I wanted. Ha! I had the wrong copy paste buffer. I'm saving that for something else. I may have to just trim that. I don't know if I still have it in my copy paste buffer or my notepad file. I think I got rid of it. Yeah, I did. Okay, so hang on. Let me just grab some of this. So what we can do at the command line, let's say you've installed this across your Nexus devices. Well, you don't even need to go into guest shell. From the switch, you can say guest shell run Python, the path to the package, and then I can pass it the arguments. So using click, yes, if I just press enter at the shell, it prompts me for the answers, or I could pass them in as arguments. So check this out. Right from the switch, right from enable mode on the switch, I'm not even in guest shell. Cloning into my docs. And then it's going to dump all the JSON per file to the screen. So then if I go back into my, right, if I refresh my repository here, see I have 2 updates to pull down. Or if I go back in here and go back to my PyDocs output and refresh this 4 minutes ago with a new commit ID, right? So if I go to my commit, is there a way for me, I should know this. There should be a way for me to look at my commits. Right, so right now the uptime is at 19 minutes. Right from the command line of the switch. But what we want is self-documenting networks. And this is maybe where I'm going to lean on you for some help if you're watching me. There's something called EAM. And if we just quickly Google this, NXOS EAM, there is Embedded Events Manager. So this is where I really want to go, is to say anytime someone does a show or a copy run start, anytime someone does a reload, trigger my script. So let's see if we can figure this out. This is sort of where I'm at, is with EAM, to really make it self-documenting networks. And then we could make an EAM script that says every 4 hours, every 15 minutes, every whatever, trigger the script and get the state of the network off of the box into Git using EAM. So let's see if we can figure this out. CLI local Python EAM. Okay, let's see if we can figure this out. And this is what I was trying to do before we started here tonight. And then I got called away to dinner. And I didn't quite get it working. So let me just see if I have any EAM scripts at all right now. So we can say show run EAM. And I don't have any. So we go into config mode. And we want to say event manager applet, and let's give it a specific name, nxpydoc, and let's just do write mem. And then what we're going to say is event, and what we want to do is trigger in on the syslog. So let me quickly get the syslog up here. Termon copy run start, and then show logging last 10. So this is what I want to trigger on, is this event. Yeah, Yairo, maybe you could help me sort this out. So what I want to do is on this config write done or configuration copy successful, right? So let's use that, right? So what we're going to say is event syslog pattern. Oh, is it not sharing that on the screen? Is it cut off? Oh, hang on. Let me adjust my resolution. I didn't do that. Usually I change my resolution before I start streaming. Let me change my resolution so this is all bigger, if that helps everybody. Where did it go? Is that a little better? Does that all show on the screen now? Okay, sorry Cass and Robert. I'm trying to adjust that with my resolution. No, it's still cutting it off. I don't know why. Let me just bring it up. I'm not sure why I didn't have that problem before. I don't know what's going on with my stream, but I'll just bring this up so that everybody can see it. And now I've closed my... Sorry about that. Let me log back in. Let me try to get that full screen so everyone can see that. I'm not sure why that's cutting it off, but what I can do is do it this way. Sorry, everyone. I just noticed that we still lost the bottom. What I'll do is I'll resize this browser window so that everyone can see the text. Apologies, I didn't realize it was cutting it off. And now that's cutting me off where I can't see it. Okay, there. Is that better? Is that on the screen? I'm trying to look on the side here. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry everybody. Sorry about that. So the syslog pattern is a regex pattern. And we're going to take, I think we just take this, system config write done, and paste that in as the pattern. So on that pattern, then go ahead and do an action of 1. And our action option here is going to be CLI. And then the code we want the CLI to run, which should be this. I had it doubled up. Hang on. So my action 1 is going to be CLI. Let me just paste that in again, because I have the whole thing here. So action 1, CLI, run the guest shell, run Python, and run that script. And I didn't quite get this working. So now if I do show run eam, right? So we have an applet name. On the event syslog pattern, sysmessage5 config write done. Action 1, CLI, guest shell, run, and then run the code. Now, in theory here, if I do a copy run start, that should trigger the Python script. See, and it's not. And I'm not the best with eam, so I'm not sure if my pattern is not matching or if my action is not correct. So this is sort of where I've got, and I just need to crack this little bit of code here in the eam script to get it to run my Python. Now I know that this works. If I copy this and paste it, oh, I see, it's, yeah. If I copy from the guest shell over and run that string, it does run the script. So your actions need to be 001. Oh, is that really all it is? It's just my action number? Okay, Yairo, let me try that. Very cool. So show run eam conf t, go into my event manager. So instead of action 1, have it action 0. Right, so know that out. I have to do the whole string. show run eam. Okay. And I can give that a description as well if we want. Description, generate and push documentation to GitHub. All right, so action 001. Actually, let me paste that in. I'll just take it from my string here. So action 001. Let's try that. Let's try that. That's a good idea. I didn't think of that. So then copy, run, start. Yeah, you see it's just not firing. It's not firing. And I don't know, again, show run eam. I don't know, is it not matching the syslog pattern? But that is the pattern. Missing the percent on the match? Could be. It could be that. Yeah, I thought 1.0 would work, but I can leave that as 00. Let's try that. Let's try that on the action. So no. And then percent. And copy, run, start. Show logging last 10. Is it? So there's the match, and it looks like it's trying here to run the guest shell. So maybe is it a permissions thing? Although when I just run it at the CLI, it does work. So I'm not sure why I'm getting an auth priv 5 message. That is really strange. Unless it's my code, unless it's my command, but it is the exact same command. Show run eam. Okay, let's try something else. Let's try something else just for troubleshooting purposes. And let me know that out. Let's just say Python. Let's just say Python here. So action 1 CLI guest shell run Python. And let's just see if it takes me into copy, run, start. Does it take me into the Python shell? No, it does not. So so maybe it is the guest shell run Python is not the right syntax for the action here. No action 001 CLI guest shell run Python. Show run eam. I wonder, is there a direct, so action 1. All right, and I do want to run CLI. And then the line is just the command. Do I need to say local? I don't think so. Yeah, see, it doesn't have command. It just has, so after CLI, all I have is line, enter the VSH command. I wonder if I just, so is that, yeah, you actually, you can't put quotes. If you put quotes, it complains. Guest shell. Quoting is not. Now what if I just put in, yeah, there is no command on the Nexus 9K. On this V9, there is no like, I can't, command is not a valid, I can't tab that out. It just says line. Now maybe I don't say guest shell run. Maybe I just say Python, since it's looking for a V shell command. Maybe it just needs CLI Python. Copy, run, start. I hope that does it. I feel like I'm dancing around having this working. I just need, see, that doesn't work either. Okay, let's get rid of that. No action one. CLI. Yeah, I know. All of my examples had command as well. And I don't know, maybe I can't do it on this platform. I feel like if I can run guest shell run and then trigger it, that I should be able to trigger it with eam. So what if I do action one CLI and then just take my path of my Python over? I don't know. I think like it needs to know that it's Python to run that code. Copy, run, start. No, see, it's just not working. So again, and I'm still not sure that the action, let me just do a different action to see that, let's do this in order, right? Let's troubleshoot that it's matching. So I'll put something in like a brute force reload here. So let's do this. Action one CLI reload. Now, that's, if this works, I'm going to need to wait for the box to come back up after the reload, but let's just see that my my pattern is not matching. So let's get the pattern matching for, okay, no, see, it's reloading. Okay, well, let's let it reload. So I know that my pattern is matching because I've just reloaded this box. So that's funny. But anyway, it's one way to confirm that our eam event is matching the regex on the syslog. So now, either I'm limited by this 9kV, and I already have external connection this way. I guess I don't need to do it this way too. Maybe I'm making a bridge here, or a loop, but I'll come back to that. So once the box is up and my guest shell is up, we just have to figure out N9KV eam action example. Anything specifically for the 9kV? Right? Or embedded events actions can run the Python. Right. So, all right, let's find this programmability guide and see if maybe they will give us a bit more guidance. I'm pretty sure it's in this document, but let's see here. Okay, so running scripts with eam. That's it? That's all they give me? I don't want a tickle script, I just want to run eam. CLI Python boot flash pydate. Right, but I'm not running it from boot flash, I'm just running it from the guest shell. So does it have to be a .py file on boot flash? That doesn't seem to make sense. Why can't I trigger the guest shell and run it on the guest shell? Because I don't have a .py file. I have it installed as an application. And guest shell takes a bit to boot up, but yeah, it's not quite activated yet. Well, no, Yairo, I know that my event is running fine. Show run eam, like this event is matching because when I say action 1 CLI reload force, so it's my action that is not quite right. And I know action 1 is okay. So I just need to see how to trigger, or maybe I'm limited and I need the .py file somewhere. But I'm pretty sure, like I thought I would be able to say, so no action 1 CLI reload force. Show run eam. So let's see what our options are here. Action 1, and it's CLI, and that's all I have is line. Maybe local, maybe I do need local. Execute the action in the same card which the event happens. Or enter the VSH command. Let me just take a look and see if this is anywhere on the net to give me an example. So eam you can configure eam policies using the command line interface or a VH. So does it have to be a shell script? Because that's no good. I don't want to run a shell script. I just want to run the Python. Action statements. Supported actions. Execute any CLI commands. Okay, so why doesn't it run my guest shell command? You can write policies in a VH script by using a text editor. Policies in a VH script have an event and an action. So it looks like it has to be, but I don't want a script. I want to run the CLI command. CLI, configure a VHS CLI action. So maybe I'm limited by this technology. Maybe I can't actually do this unless I'm really disappointed. I thought I had figured all this out, and I thought this was just an easy way to say run CLI guest shell run Python and then run my code. Okay, what if I just do guest shell CLI guest shell run Python, right? Which means if I do guest shell run Python, it takes me into the Python CLI. So can I try that? Copy, let's just make sure that show run eam Copy, run, start. Now this should like take me to the Python command. See, and it doesn't work. So it's misleading. It's not actually running any CLI command. Let's add the local just to see if maybe that makes any difference. I can't see how it's going to make a difference, but let's just put the local in there just in case. So no action 1 CLI guest shell run Python. And again, this is a virtual box. Maybe it's different on a physical box or a different platform. Action 1 CLI local guest shell. Let's just do guest shell. Let's see if it takes me into the guest shell. Copy, run, start. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work. What is in the syslog here? Show logging last 10. Is it trying it and it just fails here for some reason? Yeah, it could be many things. It could be that this 9K doesn't support the Hang on, let me try something. Let me just see something real quick. There's an always on nexus. Let's just take a look there. Okay, so I have the guest shell. What did I just kill the sandbox? All I did was put in, or do they have it restricted where you can't put in EAM policies because it's the always on sandbox? too many quotes. Yeah, they have... They have protections on here that you can't set up an EAM policy, so I'm actually going to need to spin up a sandbox. But that they don't have a sandbox, it's CML with a different platform. Well, this is a real bummer. I thought for sure I could just trigger any CLI command, like reload. It reloads, right? So that reload CLI command works, but the guest shell CLI command is not working. Action 1. Right, CLI, and then all I have is my line. If I say guest shell, it should take me into the guest shell on a copy run start. But that doesn't work. Well, this, I don't want to say it defeats, it's still pretty good that you can run this command at this, you know, run it at the guest shell or run it from the switch. But I was really hoping to be able to trigger this with EAM. And it should actually trigger with EAM. Let me try something else, just for experimentation. If I go into guest shell and sudo vi testing.sh and do I need to quickly look up a bash shell example. Bash script hello world. I called that test sh, didn't I? I think so. I don't know. Testing shit. I didn't run that shell file either. Well. This is really embarrassing. I was like, I did all the hard work writing the Python in 2.7 and got it all working and my templating and the Git repository. This was supposed to be the easy part. Like just set up an EAM script to trigger the Python. But as you can see, I cannot seem to figure out action 1 CLI. What about if I just do Python? And again, we know that the syslog is working because it triggered a reload when I tested that. See, it doesn't take me into Python. Show logging last 5. Right, there's nothing in the syslog either. Well, I don't want to get too hung up on this. I can maybe open up attack. What do you mean it works? Sorry, Iro, you seem to be onto something. Using the tickle? The TCL way? It's just really weird to me because, okay, so here's my thinking, right? If I do, we know that reload works, which is a CLI command. And if I take my CLI command, right, guess shell all the way to the end, that is a CLI command. That triggers the... So why can't I send it, guess shell, as my CLI command? I just can't wrap my head around it. That is a CLI command. That's my CLI command. Do I need to sudo it? Maybe? No. That doesn't make sense. Oh, so reload's not a CLI command, it's an action menu. Yeah, I did CLI reload. Or Yairo, you think it's running, we just don't see it running? Five minutes ago. Well, no, I just ran it, so... So let's flush those files. I don't think it's working. I don't think it's working. Action 1 CLI. What are my other action options? I don't think, right, like... Oh, I see what you're saying. I did action 1 reload instead of action 1 CLI reload. I see what you're saying. What if I do CLI... config T? Will that take me into config T mode? No. So that CLI is not, I see. The CLI is not running CLI commands. It says VASH CLI action. Well, See, it's definitely an action though. Just going to check something. I know it won't let me actually set up an action, but let's just take a look at the menu of the always on NXOS. Okay, it's the same set of stuff, CLI, right, so and this is a what? 9300V. So I'm working with the same platform here as in the cloud. Unfortunately, the sandbox got rid of the actual Nexus. They used to have a Nexus you could reserve, but they don't have that anymore. Yeah, it's gone. It's been gone for quite some time. Do default action for the event? No. Again, I don't know. Maybe I'm limited by this 9300 platform. Maybe this would work if I had an actual 7K or a 9K, a physical 9K. But it's right here. Execute any CLI command. It's right there. It's right there in the guide. And this is a 9000. So, like, how do I execute any CLI command? EAM can only process a complete action CLI list of up to 1024 characters in total. If more actions are required, you must define them with a new redundant applet with the same trigger. I don't think I'm over that many characters. It is a lot of characters, though. But even when I do just guest shell run, it doesn't take me into the guest shell. Yeah, ISR. ISR might work. I assume it has a guest shell. I don't know if it's exactly the same here, but I'm just trying to see. Like, they have an action to do show tech, which is a CLI command. Give me some examples here. Okay, so event manager, action. So we have the event. See, and then they have action, CLI, show interface. Let's just try that. And let's do 1.0 just to follow their convention. CLI, show interface. Right, so if I do show interface, I should get this. Okay, so copy, run, start. See, it's not running anything. It's not doing anything. So it's got to be a limitation of this virtual. I don't think my wife is going to let me buy an rack and an actual N9K in my basement. This is really unfortunate. I know it will work, and I know that I have the right event, and that is the action is to run something. But it seems to be a limitation either of CML, of this N9KV. Now what can I do here? Now I can't pip install my package, and I'll have to drop my VPN, and we need to wait a few minutes for me to get my email. But let's go ahead and, well, that's CML, but it's a different Nexus. Or what is it? I think it's a Nexus. Let me just quickly check something. So if we look at CML in the sandbox, this is what I usually use for my development because it has Nexus and iOS XE. Let's just quickly take a look at what we get in here. It just says NXOS, but what is it? Is it a Nexus 9000? Does it tell me in the documentation here somewhere? Yeah, it's a 9000. Stupid crypto people. Blame the crypto people for crippling the sandbox. I'm going to swear here. Those fucking crypto people were using the sandbox to mine coins or something, so they had to lock it all down and they had to get rid of a bunch of sandboxes. I don't know if that's what really happened, but that's what I think happened. So we don't have access to like a Nexus, an actual Nexus box. Now I could probably flip over to, no, see, none of them are going to have internet access anymore either. So I need to find a physical Nexus to confirm this. Now, I'm not going to let that put a damper on the party. You get the intention here, is that if we get the script running, we can trigger it with an EAM event on write-mem or on reload or on whatever we want. Every time someone goes into config T mode, capture the state of the network. So let's go back and let's just do another command. So I'm going to have to just abandon this because I don't want to waste too much of everyone's time. But as we can see, even show interface is not working. So the CLI commands are not working in this Nexus 9000V. So let's go back to guest shell. And what we're going to do is go into Python. It is why we can't have nice things, Sergio. People screw it up. So we're going to say from CLI import star CLID. And let's do something like show IP interface brief. Let's try that one. Is that a supported command where we get, it's funny because everything else works. I have a guest shell. I'm able, yeah, so good. So there is show IP interface brief as the JSON payload. So now let's go ahead and template that. And what I'm going to do is take this JSON and put it into my VS Code so we can develop a template against it. And the other thing is all of my, whoops, I'm in the wrong repo here. All of my templates, if you just bear with me for a second here, all of these templates are throwaway because it's different than what I've been templating against. So for this specific Nexus 9K, I'm going to flush all this out. I have it in other repositories. Don't freak out. Don't worry about it. So we're going to say if command equals show IP interface brief, else if, and then an end if here. So then I'm making this harder on myself than I need to. Let's do something else. Let's go back here. And what we're going to do is send the JSON. So we're going to run nxpydocs show IP interface brief to JSON to my Git repository. With my username. And the environmental variables go away when you leave the shell. That's why I'm having to type all this again. And then what I can do is work from this JSON file backwards for my templates. Yeah, Robert, you're right. I could probably... See, look it. There we go. There's the nice JSON. I could probably ask around and get access to an actual Nexus. I'm still pretty new, and I don't really even know who to ask for such a thing, or you know what I mean? Hey, can I get access to a Nexus, a physical Nexus, by the way? But I know some people. I can poke around. I might even bring this up to some people that I know that are very smart and say, hey, listen, on the Nexus 9KV, I'm trying to trigger an EAM event, and it doesn't seem to work. Maybe that team can help me out. But for now, let's just template a couple more commands. And in your mind, right, I'm 2/3, I'm 99% of the way there. I just need the EAM script to pick it up and run. But this is to give you a set. Yeah, Hank might be able to help, or Stuart, or Joe Clark, or somebody like that. I hate to drop names, but there's a bunch of people that would probably be able to help me out. I think there's even an N9K WebEx room I might be able to ask for some help. But now if we go into my repository here and I refresh it, I should have... no. You know what? I haven't added the code yet. Let's go back here. So what I need to do is uncomment the code. That should have given me an error though. It printed it to the screen. Did I not say JSON file? So I said JSON file. It should have printed an error. Right, so in my code, if command in supported templates, it should have triggered this else and echoed out, oh, I screwed up here. Right, so file type is not none. If the command is in else printed out. Yeah, so it is following my logic. I need to adjust my logic here to say if file type is not none. So if it's in the supported templates, it skips all this and goes right here. So I need to catch this logic here. If file type is not none, so it'll never go in there. Yeah, I need to work on this logic here. Anyway, I'll come back to that logic. What I want to do is have, if it's not a supported templated file, right, it's not none. So it never got to that logic because it hit this else statement. So if it's in the supported templates, and then I should move this logic here. No, if it's in the supported templates, go here. So what I need to do is add a bit of code here to say if self.fileType does not equal none, and this is my else logic, right? So it's not in the supported templates, but they picked a file type. This is where I'm going to click echo out a message. So we're going to click echo show command not templated yet. Okay, let's push this. Well, let's push this just to test this negative logic, because I'd like to trying to catch errors as I go here, and that was a mistake. It should have sent a message to the user saying you picked a file type, but there's no template for that file yet. Because like me, I was looking for the JSON file. So let's update the code. Up arrow instead of just typing it out. I know. 200 up arrows looking for a command. Okay, so now let's run nxpydocs show IP interface brief with a file type of JSON and no repositories. Okay, good. Show command is not yet templated. But that's not quite exactly what I want. I still want to send the JSON to the screen. Because I can still parse the command, it just hasn't been templated yet. And technically, JSON files don't use templates. The logic grows and grows. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this going here. So show IP interface brief. Let's uncomment that. And now it's a supported file type. And we should be able to get the JSON file. Actually, you know, I should have this say like if file type does not equal. So if self command is supported and it's not in the supported templates, if the file type does not equal JSON or does not equal YAML, does not equal JSON or YAML, then do that. Else pick the file type. Which would be JSON or YAML, and give them those files. I'm getting a little off track here. I'm just trying to work out the code. But basically, YAML and JSON don't use Jinja templates. It's just using JSON dumps and YAML dump. So technically, even if I don't have a template, they should be able to get the JSON or YAML file from their show command. So let's work through this again, right? If it's all and it's not all. If the command is in the templates, then just go ahead and template it and do your normal thing. Right? If the file type is not none and the repo is not none, else pick the file type. So then if it's not in the supported templates, if the file type does not equal none or JSON or YAML, no, it should just be if it does not equal JSON or YAML, then go ahead and get the command, parse it, pick the file type, which would be JSON or YAML, print it to the screen. And I don't need to print it to the screen because I'm already printing it to the screen in the JSON file, right? And if it else, so if it does not equal JSON or YAML, then give them the message that it's not templated yet and dump it to the screen. I think that's the best logic here. And we'll try this a couple different ways here. Oops, I need to build it first. Well, thanks for staying with me. I really apologize that EAM stuff was such a headache. And I'm a little disappointed that my proof of concept here, I still have a minimum viable product, but it's not quite exactly right. I was hoping to trigger this with EAM events to have this automated self-documenting device. Okay, so now let's try that again. nxpydocs show IP interface brief. Actually, let's do a different command. Show inventory with no file. I should get the JSON on the screen. And I do not. So I've broken something again here. Let's just do this again. Show inventory to JSON. But I didn't put the repo information in. Show inventory to JSON to my Git repo, and I still have something broken there I have to revisit. Automate your network. And I'm done with that. I don't need to save that because it's not working. Maybe I found a bug. That could be it. Okay, so I've really botched this logic here. So it's printing it to the screen. Okay, and it's making it locally, even though I put the repository information in. Let's go back here. This logic is getting a little ugly here. So it does not equal all. It's not in the supported templates. I know what I need to do here. I didn't invoke my... Yeah, that makes sense. It's doing exactly what I said. I didn't invoke my repo not none stuff. So I need to take this. So let's go back here. So if it equals JSON or YAML, and the repo is not none, then do that. Else, get the command and make the file locally. That's better. And then my else here is if it's not JSON or YAML, but it is not in the self templates, then just print it to the screen and say that it's not templated yet. Okay, that's better. That's better. So let's patch it, build it. And again, I don't mind demystifying that I'm some sort of Python guru here. I do make mistakes. My logic is not always perfect, and I iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate until I get it right. So let's go through those use cases again with the new code. And you know, maybe this humanizes me a little bit more. Let's upgrade our file. Okay, so now let's do, right, because show inventory is still commented out. So it's not a supported template. So NX PyDocs. And actually, let's go ahead and export since I'm going to stay in the shell for a while. Export repo equals... Yeah, I'm all done going out of the shell. So let's make this a little easier on ourselves. Export username equals automate your network, and export token equals and my token, which I will be refreshing, so don't worry about that. So now NX PyDocs and show inventory. And again, let's just do no file. Well, that's not going to work because I don't have any files. Okay, so yeah. So that's a use case there, is if they put in a repo but they don't put a file. So I need to handle the if file type is not none. So I've hit another bug, another failed test here. Let's do that again and do show inventory to JSON. Parse JSON as reference. Pick file type. I know. Why is my picked file type Yeah, I have to generate that first. And then what was my other little failure there? Was if they said no file, but they put in a get repo. So if command, and then if self file type does not equal none, but there's somewhere else where I have the file type here. So if it does not equal JSON or YAML, really should be if file type does not equal none, and then if it does not equal JSON or YAML. Right? Because I'm not worried about all. So if the command is in the supported templates, do a bunch of stuff. Else, if it equals JSON or YAML, and then I have else. So I need to handle the if self dot file type does not equal none, and then that's going to be an else if. No. So if the file type does not equal none, and then that logic. So if it does not equal none and it does not equal YAML, right? So if self file type does equal none, just print it to the screen. So if it does not equal none, it does not equal YAML or JSON, no, that should be if it equals none. If it does not equal none, I've lost my way here a little bit. Let's undo that, and let's just go back to the failed case and figure out what was the failed use case there. All right, let's run that again. What caused that failure? So me saying the command, let's fix one bug at a time and patch that in. I think the use case was if they said no files but put in a get repo. Right? So I think that was my failed use case. And I'm worried about if file type does not equal JSON or YAML, then, and if the repo does not equal none, else. I think I've already handled the logic. I was missing this code here, whereas if they had put in no file type and no. I think that's my problem here, is that I'm not handling none, but I'm handling if repo is not none. So none is a valid file type here, so it's not catching that logic. So none is triggering the repo none. So I think I could just put some little logic in here to say if self dot file type equals none, else do this logic here. So if they put a repo in what I want to do is give them a message that says, if you select a repository, you must select a file type. Yeah. Ha. Okay. That is the logic I was looking for. I was overthinking things, which I tend to do. I tend to jump right to complexity when it really is just a simple bit of logic to say, right, if the repo is not none, well, if they don't put a file type, then they can't send anything to the repository. So now let's try that. And let's try our broken use case. This is kind of, it's not really test-driven development, but right, I'm finding failures and addressing them. So Nexus PyDocs, and we're going to do show inventory with no file type. Aha, you see, you must select, if you select a repository, you must select a file type. Good, good. So now we're going to say show inventory to JSON. And now if I refresh my repository here, see I have a file to pull down, and there show inventory is JSON. Aha, okay, good. Now let's do YAML. Show inventory YAML. And that should all work, and I should get a YAML file in here. And there's my YAML file. And you can see that each one of my products has a row. Now, if I do one that doesn't have a template, right, show inventory to CSV, I should get a message on the screen here. No, so that didn't trigger the right code. That didn't work. Hang on, that seemed to still work. So I got an empty file, right, but because I'm not templating it yet. So show inventory is still commented out. So what it should have done is say, if self command in self.supported templates, but it's not in self-supported templates. Else, if it does not equal JSON or YAML, yeah, see, file type does not equal none. So then it went ahead and moved to this code here. But I already have this logic here. File type does not equal, so then I'm already, file type does not equals none. So the repo is not, and then if file type equals none, and it doesn't equal none, it equals CSV, so it went ahead and tried to put it into the repository. So then it's a little redundant, this code. Yeah, I'm with you, Cass. I don't quite get why the CLI is not triggering, right? So then command is not templated yet is what I need to put in there. So if it's not JSON or YAML, but they've put in a repository and the file type does not equal none. All right, all right. All right, let's get back to templating. Let's get back into templating. I just want to sort out this last error while we're here. So that was I picked CSV, and really it should have said it's not in the template. If self command else, but then I've added a bunch of other logic to handle what if they pick JSON or YAML that doesn't use a template. So then I had to deal with some more logic, right? So if it does not equal JSON or YAML, then it should move into that actually should be if it equals JSON or YAML. Then do the code, get the code. Yeah, I don't think I need that extra bit of logic here. Let me undo, hang on, let me just undo all that. I just had some bad logic at the top here. So if it equals, so if it's not in the supported templates, else, if it equals JSON or YAML. So if the command is in the supported templates, then go ahead and do whatever you want with it. If it's not in the supported templates, but the file type equals JSON or YAML, and they didn't pick a repo, go ahead and give them the JSON or YAML. Else, right, repo is not empty, print it to the screen. That's much better logic. I don't know why I said not equals JSON or YAML there. It should be if it equals JSON or YAML, then go ahead and do the stuff and put it in the repo if they picked a repo, or print it to the screen. I believe that's much better. Show event manager action log. Oh, it is, you're suggesting that it is triggering that code? Let me come out of the shell. Show event manager events action log. Oh, there's my show interface, right? Is that what you're saying? Huh. I see. So it's running, but it's not printing it to the screen. But in theory, then I should have my files, no? In my Git repository, if it's triggering the guest shell command? Can I clear that action log to flush it? I don't know how to flush that, but let's let's see what happens. We'll go to the bottom of the log. Show run eam. So let's just do that. Action 1.0 CLI guest shell Python. And let's just see if I go into Python. So copy, run, start. See, I don't see. Yeah, I don't see that in my log though. I do have the show interface, but I don't have the guest shell Python. I was expecting to see it go into Python. Show run eam. Let me put my full command back in, and I'm going to have to do it from memory. I'm going to have to stitch it together. So let me go back into my guest shell and do where is nxpydoc. No, you're not taking me off my flow at all. I'd rather get the eam working than what I was working on just now. I doubt that I'm going to be able to. Geez, what was the path to that? I thought it was where is, and then I type in nxpydoc, but that takes me to nxpydoc. Python. Is it in lib? Yeah. Okay, so I need that path. And let me just be sure here, if I do Python and then that path, it runs my code. Right, okay. So action 1.0 CLI guest shell Python. Let me just put that in without my, right, because that should prompt me for the command. And then I can pass it the arguments if I get that going. Show run eam, copy run start. You see nothing. The last thing in my log is the show interface. I don't have any indication that eam is going into guest shell on here. You see what I'm saying, Cass? I'm at the bottom of my log, and that guest shell run that Python. Doesn't seem to actually trigger. Like if I just do this. Oh, haha, hang on. That's why I did that. I need run. I need guest shell run. It helps if I get the command right. Action 1.0 CLI guest shell run, and then the Python. And just to confirm before I move ahead, and I typed that in wrong. Fuck. Ugh. Action 1.0 CLI guest shell run Python. And just to confirm, guest shell run should spawn my code. And it does. Okay, now let's see what eam says. Show run eam, copy run start. Oh, it's getting late too. I'm gonna have to wrap things up and get back to things tomorrow, but let's see what the action log says. It's very odd. It's not, like, it just doesn't trigger that command at all. Oh, just run bash? Okay. So what you're saying is to say guest shell run bash, and that takes me into the guest shell. That might work. Maybe that's it. Just try it like that. Right, so guest shell run bash, which takes me into the shell. So copy run, let's just check it. Show run eam, copy run start. This should take me to the bash. or show it in the action log that it did try to go into bash. I made a typo? Is that where's my typo? No, it's not. And that takes me right into Python. It's like really weird. Oh. See, IP interface brief is not working either. Show interface worked, but show IP interface brief didn't actually update my event log here. Hang on. So there's my guest shall run Python blah blah blah. It's in my action history. It's right here. Guest shall. With my token and everything. So it's like it's in the history of my actions. So here it is here. Executing the following commands succeeded. And it ran the command. But it didn't actually trigger the Python. Like my GitHub didn't get updated. $247, so I'm way under the limit. That's what I'm thinking. It's running the command, but eam doesn't have permission to go into the shell for some reason. I don't know. It still doesn't track to me. Let's reload the box and see if we can flush out that action log and see if it's really weird that the logging stops at this show interface command. Let's just give this a quick reload. And let's finish. Let's just template out that show IP interface, or show IP interface brief. I think this code was all worked out. So if the file type is JSON or YAML, then get the command. If the repo is none, if the repo is not none, if the file type is none, send a message else. So file type is not none, but it is JSON or YAML, go ahead and send it to the repo. If the repo is none, just print it to the screen. If it's not JSON or YAML, then say the command isn't templated yet. Okay, I think that's pretty close. The only thing is if they say file type none, yeah, I need to handle if file type equals none out here. Otherwise, it's going to show an error that it's not templated yet, and then print it to the screen. Now that's fine if they say none. That's okay. Okay, so now here's now that I have the JSON, what we're going to do is we're just going to go to the show inventory JSON file, and I'll show you how I template these out. And it's really easy. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keys here. That's inventory. Where's the interface brief? I thought I did show IP interface brief to JSON. Oh, that was before I had the logic figured out. Let's just do show inventory. That's fine. So I always start with the CSV file. And we're going to make this show inventory. And we need to loop into table environment, row environment. So, and this is a CSV file. So we're going to do the header rows. And we'll do name, description, product ID, serial number, vendor ID. Well, let's do serial number at the end with product ID, vendor ID. And then we want to write rows. So, and by the way, if you're new to Jinja templating, inside of the logic, so variables are double mustaches or double curly brackets. I call them mustaches affectionately. But if you have mustache %, that's your logic. I put a dash to strip white space, in theory. So, but you can do as much spacing as you want inside of these mustaches. So for readability, I like to do the 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces inside of this if. Right, so we're going to say for item in, and the logic I'm sending is data to template. So, and I'll show you where that comes from for the CSV file. For anything that uses a Jinja template, we'll look at the CSV logic. Right, we use the .render, and then inside of the brackets is what you're passing into the Jinja template. So I have command, and that's where the if command equals show inventory logic comes from. And then the data to template is the parsed JSON. And the parsed JSON is already a dictionary. So that's where I'm going to say for item in data to template dot table environment dot row. Well, I guess it's table inventory, row inventory. I always close off my logic as I go, so N4. And then we just do, now you have to be careful here. This is actually an array inside of the square brackets. So I can call row inventory dot, or I can just say item dot. If it's not a dictionary, or if it's not an array, then you need to write the logic a little bit differently with data to template, table inventory, row inventory, square bracket, item dot. And that's how you could get into it if it wasn't an array, but it is an array. So now I can just hopefully say item dot name, comma, item dot desk item dot product ID item dot vendor ID serial number. Now before we go on, now this template is going to be the root of all of my other templates. I just remanipulate that same information. But let's save that and see if we can get a CSV file of show inventory into our Git repository. So I'm going to bump up my patch, and I'm going to just adjust my patch number here. I'm way behind on my versioning. And then I'm going to flesh out my builds as well. Build it, publish it with my PyPy token. And hopefully the thing has rebooted by now, maybe not. So I don't know if the guest shell is ready or not yet. Let's just try guest shell. Okay, it is ready. Okay, so now I've lost that command. Let me look at the chat here. Show event manager events action log, and that should be, did it flush it on the reboot? Tell me it did. It did not. Well, that reload was for nothing. Yeah, that's going to take me forever to find out. Anyway, I'll talk to some people that I know at Cisco and see if maybe they can give me a hand and sort out why that's not working. But let's go ahead and pull down the latest version of the code. I don't have internet. So if you see this yellow, by the way, if you're doing this pip install, I don't have internet just yet. So let me just, I think maybe I need to bounce a port. Let me just go back to the switch, show IP interface. Brief, yeah. There we go. Guest shell. Okay, so now what we want to do is, and I am going to export again. So export repo equals export username equals automate your network. Export token equals and then nx-pydocs show inventory, and we want this to CSV. And this is good. Time is it? 8:30. I got to wrap things up pretty soon here. Okay, so let's just see, did I get that inventory as a CSV file? I did. So look at, so there is the inventory as a nice CSV file, which is a really nice file to have as an inventory file. And I guess there are no serial numbers because it's a virtual device. Okay, so how do we do the other templates? Well, like I said, I just take this. So Markdown is super easy. So I'm going to take this code here. I'm going to go into my Markdown code. Yeah, none of this is valid anymore from my other repo. So let me just, let's show version. let me go all the way to the top here. So for Markdown, honestly, you put a pipe in front, a pipe at the end, pipe in front, pipe at the end, and then you just replace the commas. So find replace on the comma with space, pipe, space. And I do this one at a time in case I have any regex replaces. I don't want to replace that comma inside of my replace here. So be very careful when you're doing this. Don't replace all without paying attention. And then we add a delimiter row to make it nice markdown. A nice markdown table. This is the delimiter for markdown. And then a nice header title, right? Show inventory. Now I'll do these all in one batch. So now what the next file is the CSV, Markdown, HTML, and then mind map. So the HTML, and this will just take me a second to flush this out as well. So you're going to see, there's show VLAN, which I've, no, show version is the one I've done. I got to get rid of this VLAN, and then I got to get everything above. So that's correct. Hang on, getting ahead of myself here. So you're going to see an include data footer. So in Jinja, you can include other templates to save you writing code over and over and over again. So at the very top, I have the header J2, which looks like this, which is all of my data table stuff, my scripts and my style sheets. And then the footer is my JavaScript for the table to turn it into a data table. So then what I'm going to do is go to my CSV file and copy it. And I'm going to basically do the same thing here. I'm going to take this code and paste it in here and change that to show inventory. Tab this in and give it a table header / table header, just like I did with the pipes. Finish that row. And then I have to add a bit of code to say the body and the table, right? So like this. But my table row then goes inside of my for loop. So table row, table delimiter, table delimiter, table row, and then I close out the table body, close out the table. I think that's all I need to do. Table body row, yeah. And then again with the commas, I'm going to find the comma, and instead of pipes, we're going to replace it with /th, shift, enter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, /th. Oh, too many spaces. And make that nice and lined up. And then we just change these to table TD, TD. And again, if you're doing any regex replaces, be careful you don't replace those. And this is, no, I made a mistake here. I screwed up in my find replace. They should not have slashes in front of them. All right, so that is the HTML. Now to make the mind map is even easier. I just take the for loop, honestly, just take the for loop, and let's get rid of the VLANs. And everything above show version. That's just old code, right? So then it's going to be if command equals show inventory, add an else, and then we just paste in our for loop. So then outside of the for loop, we're going to have a single one called show inventory. Get rid of our HTML tags. and then that's 2, that's 3, and we're going to say name, description, and let's, just for fun, give it an extra one here called IDs. And we can make that 4 and call that product, 4 and call that vendor, and then 1, 2, 3 serial number. Save that. So those are our templates to do show inventory as business ready documents. Let's increment our code. Version patch 156. Build it and then publish it. And this will be it for me tonight. I do have to get back upstairs and spend a little bit of time with my family. This is, I've sort of lost track of time. I'm having so much fun here. And we struggled so much with the EAM scripts. Okay, so now let's just finish this code off. And I'll give you an idea that I'll probably patch in. I'll probably get back to this tomorrow morning and turn the stream back on. But one thing you're going to find is I don't have the device name in this file, in the files. So this one single device to one repo, it's okay if it's just, you know, show inventory. But really I want the host name show inventory, the host name show version. And I'll do that tomorrow. It's very easy. What we're going to do is run show version, extract the host name from the show version command and register that as a variable, and then, you know, prepend that to all of our file names. So regardless of whatever show command the user's running, we're going to grep the show version command first, and then run whatever show command they want and prepend their command. So now let's run nxpydocs show inventory all files. And this will wrap it up. So Cass, Yaro, Stephen, geez, I'm probably missing a few people. Make, everybody who joined, Robert, yeah, everybody who joined me tonight. Thank you for joining, and I appreciate the help and you trying to help me sort out the EAM scripts. Okay, so now let's go into our repo. And we're going to pull down our code and we'll take a look at the show inventory. So we already saw the CSV file. Here's what the markdown looks like. And this renders on GitHub. So a nice table of show inventory. And then we're going to look at the HTML page, which is a nice data table that we can, let me refresh this. We can sort and search and filter and find. Let's say I'm just looking for the 9300V. There it is. Right? We can do all kinds of neat stuff. I could make this an Excel file. I could print it, make it a PDF. Lots of neat stuff from the data table. And then the mind map. So there is the mind map. And we can see that we have the chassis, the slot, and the slot. And we have the IDs. So, bit of a stumbling block. I'm going to have to do some research and talk to some various people about why guest shell, or the best way to run guest shell from EAM, if it's possible to run guest shell from EAM. The other thing is we're going to get the file, the host name, and put it in front of all of these files. And then we're just going to template more and more commands. So I'm going to tackle this from two fronts. Tomorrow, first thing, I'm going to turn on the stream. We're going to deal with the host name. Then we're going to template more valuable show commands. And then maybe Monday or next week when I get back into the office, I'll poke around Cisco and see if I can get some guidance in some direction. Yeah, it doesn't seem... Okay. Well, Cass, I'm... Oh, no. So, Cass, you can't do that on the match. You have to use the syslog message. So you can't do it on the command copy run start, otherwise it will block you. You have to trigger on the syslog pattern. So you have to let the command run, and you're looking for the pattern in syslog. I encountered the same thing. You can't just look for the action of copy run start, or the event copy run start. Your event has to be the syslog. And we know the event is triggering it because we're rebooting the box. So it's not the event, it just seems to be the action of guest shell. So I'm going to wrap things up. thank you for spending your Friday night with me. Thank you for all your help and ideas. This was fun. This was worthwhile. And, you know, we're getting there. We actually have a nice self-documenting network on the box without PyETS, without REST APIs. And we'll try to pick up from there. And I'm going to recycle my keys just so that nobody gets cute and uses my key. So let me just, and let me push this code into my Git repo. So let me just push this in. I don't know why that commit this. I don't want that. Initial commit. And commit that in and sync my changes. So that way this code is available on my GitHub and it's available on PyPy if you want to play around with it. Let me go to my repository here. So NX and yeah, it's all been pushed in here. And then let me just show you so that nobody gets cute. I am going to blow away that key so that nobody can use the key that I've been displaying all night. So the key's gone. All right, have a great weekend, everybody. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow morning. I'll be back at this, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock.